I'm going to the bathroom, honey.
Hello? Good entertainment, while my wife continues shopping.
Yes! There's a living room with an intruder in the maintenance room.
Forbidden places people stumbled into by accident. We all know how renting works, right, buddy? Papers, keys, a deposit the size of a small kidney, and a landlord who swears the sink was perfect before you showed up. But what if I told you 8 artists in Providence, Rhode Island skipped all of it? Yes, 8. Adriana Valdez Young, Michael Townsend, and 6 more artists. Providence Place Mall, Rhode Island, 2003. Shiny floors, pop music, pretzel air, thousands of shoppers. And hidden in the building's guts, lower level, behind service corridors near the employee loading dock, below the movie theater, was a 750 square foot secret apartment. Couch, PlayStation. Lived in on and off for 4 years, not Batman money, just exhausted art weirdos with thrift store furniture and a camera hidden in an Altoids tin. It started with a mall radio ad. A woman joked, "If only I could live there." Everyone laughed, but Adriana Valdez Young and her partner Michael Townsend didn't, because they just lost Fort Thunder and Eagle Square, a DIY artist warehouse and community space, demolished for commercial development. So the joke became a dare. If the city replaces our home with a mall, what happens if we move into the mall? They tried 1 week. Townsend slipped into low-traffic corridors during off-peak hours and found a forgotten void. 1 week became 2003 to 2007. They called themselves Trummer Kind, Children of the Ruins, and built a locked-off room with over 5,000 pounds of cinder blocks. They ran extension cables from maintenance outlets for lights, TV, heater, and APS2. 1 extra draw in a mall is 1 extra mosquito in a swamp. Nobody noticed. They blended in, carried trash out in shopping bags, used public restrooms, showered at gyms, ate food court snacks, and never cooked. Then the funniest insult, the secret apartment got burglarized and the PS2 was stolen. You stumble into a secret apartment inside a mall wall. Your score is a PS2. That's not even a good haul in 2003. That is genuinely insulting. 4 years in, 1 rule, never bring outsiders. Townsend broke it. He invited a visiting artist from Hong Kong, Jaffa Lam, who didn't know the routes, didn't know the timing, walked where she shouldn't. She got flagged by security. Guards followed the trail. 4 years of flawless stealth ended by being a good host. Arrested on charges related to trespassing, later ended in probation and a lifetime ban. And then the twist. In 2025, the mall lifted the ban so Townsend could attend a theatrical screening of Jeremy Workman's documentary, Secret Mall Apartment, inside the mall's own cinema. The place that arrested him used him for marketing, and people are even talking about converting malls like this into housing. So yeah, buddy, don't invite someone to your secret mall room if the guards can see them. If a school has something humming under the floor, it's probably old pipes, bad wiring, maybe the HVAC system fighting for its life, or at worst, a ghost with Wi-Fi problems, right, buddy? Not a cryptocurrency mining operation. But what if I told you that's exactly what it was? Let me explain. Because the internet trained your brain wrong. You picture one hoodie kid mining on a laptop like it's 2011. Dim lights, neon keyboard, and boom, he's a billionaire between homework assignments. That image came from early Bitcoin stories in the 2000s, when people really could mine on home computers and a decent GPU didn't turn the power bill into a NASA launch budget. But now, mining isn't a laptop hobby, it hums. December 2021, Cohasset Middle/High School in Cohasset, Massachusetts, routine facilities inspection. Quiet halls and that weird industrial cleaner smell mixed with cafeteria pizza that never leaves. Maintenance staff hear something, not a broken fan. A low humming sound. Constant, mechanical. Like the school itself is thinking too hard. So they check it out. They pop open a maintenance hatch in the boiler room and crawl into a crawl space beneath the boiler room area near the gym to cafeteria wing. And then they see it. Rows of specialized crypto miners, ASIC-style rigs, the kind commonly used for coins like Bitcoin, not gaming PCs. Cables snaked across the ground, holes cut for routing through walls into conduit. Near the breaker area, an improvised ventilation with ducting and a fan pushing hot air out into an existing service duct. Hardware that definitely was not on the school's tech inventory. Yes, a man mining crypto at school. Name, Nadim Nahas. And here's the detail that flips the whole story. He wasn't some random hacker breaking in through the internet. He was the town's former assistant facilities director, meaning he'd had access to infrastructure spaces most people never see. By the time this happened, he wasn't in the job anymore. And apparently the only thing working 24/7 at this school was the crypto rig, buddy. Investigators reported finding 12 rigs installed in the crawl space, running continuously. Not a laptop experiment, basically a tiny underground data center. And crypto mining isn't digital money magic, power, heat, bill. Authorities estimated the setup pulled about $17,500 worth of electricity from the school's supply over the period it was operating, like powering a bunch of homes for a month on the school's tab. Electricity leaves traces, weird meter readings, breaker stress, and a bill that makes accountants blink. They found it by sound. The bill and meter readings just backed it up. The Norfolk District Attorney's Office later filed electricity theft and vandalism-related charges tied to the installation. Because yeah, they literally punched holes in a school to pay for internet coins. No cinematic hacker battle, no cyber war command center, just hardware under a floor. Imagine students upstairs stressing over algebra tests, while directly under their feet, a mini data center is doing advanced math they'll never get credit for. So yeah, buddy, crypto mining is futuristic, but not $17,500 electricity bill humming under a high school crawl space? Cool. We all know the lazy couch rule, right, buddy? You fall asleep watching TV, worst case you wake up with neck pain, a dry mouth, and Netflix asking, "Are you still watching?" like it pays rent. Your house doesn't just swallow you, but what if I told you that's exactly what happened to one guy in Culiacan, Sinaloa? Let me explain. Because when people hear this story, their brain goes full cartel Netflix. Steel doors, hidden bunkers, dramatic underground lighting. But the real version isn't cinematic. It's a couch, a living room, around 3:30 in the morning, and a floor that turned into a trapdoor. May 2022, Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico. A 26-year-old named Martin Rios dozes off on his couch watching TV. Normal night. Normal house, normal floor. Then the floor stops being a floor. About 2.5 meters straight down. Couch, table, vase, furniture, all of it drops with him. Minor bruises, major new fear unlocked. And here's the insult to injury that nobody asked for.
That survived?
The religious altar in the corner of the room didn't move, stayed standing perfectly, like it knew the structural report and decided to opt out. Martin Rios fell into a cartel tunnel. The saints watched from above and apparently decided that was his problem. Now here's the mechanism, buddy, because this is where it gets real. It wasn't just a random sinkhole. A narco tunnel running directly under his home had collapsed. The tunnel ran beneath at least 8 homes and exited into a canal. 8 homes, 8 families sitting on furniture above a void they had no idea existed. And here's what that canal detail implies, buddy. An exit into a drainage channel that blends into city infrastructure isn't amateur hour. It matches the tunnel logic reported in Sinaloa cases from that era. Not a weekend project, a built route that outlived the people who built it. And the entrance was in a nearby house, one that had been seized from organized crime roughly 11 years earlier. The tunnel kept going anyway. Nobody went back to map what was underneath. Nobody traced what it connected to. The house got taken and the tunnel just stayed there. 11 years, buddy. That tunnel was older than most people's gym memberships. So yeah, buddy, not an investigation, not a tip, not a drone. Gravity and a couch. Falling asleep watching TV is usually the safest part of your day. But not 11-year-old cartel infrastructure is the only thing between you and the floor safe. So yeah, naps are cool, but not my couch discovered a cartel tunnel cool. We all think if you twist open some random pipe sticking out of the dirt, you're finding plumbing. Maybe raccoons. Definitely not a secret underground weapons room, right, buddy? But what if reality doesn't care about your plumbing expectations? Let me explain. Rural Northern California, Anderson, Shasta County, January 2026. Dry soil, pine trees, dust hanging in the air, the kind of quiet countryside where even your footsteps feel loud. California Highway Patrol shows up to investigate illegal cannabis cultivation on a rural property. Routine drug bust energy, plants, paperwork, charges. Then someone finds a pipe sticking out of the ground. Not irrigation, not drainage, not a forgotten utility line. They twist open the cap. There's a tunnel, 100 feet long, buddy, about 30 meters. Culvert-style tube. kind you'd normally find under a road or a drainage ditch, repurposed as a private entrance to somewhere nobody was supposed to find. They move through it. There's a door at the end, and behind that door, 13 firearms, about 30 magazines described in reporting as high capacity, body armor, roughly 10,000 rounds of ammunition. More? Yes, assault-style rifles and a sawed-off shotgun. They came for plants. They found a loot room. The property guy, Michael J. Camfold, 40 years old, local to Shasta County, not a hidden mountain weirdo. A local guy people had seen at political meetings and protests. So yeah, buddy, this wasn't some forgotten prepper shack in the woods. This was a property with infrastructure. It's a finished underground room. Concrete flooring, drainage, ventilation, electricity, a TV, a couch, exercise equipment. Buddy, this wasn't just a hole in the ground. This was a livable hidden room. There's no public confirmation of some final master plan. No dramatic villain speech. No map with red strings. Just a rural property, a hidden tunnel, and a room underground that was never meant to be discovered. So yeah, plumbing is cool, but not open a pipe and accidentally unlock a secret underground armory? Cool. We all think historic religious buildings are about prayer, candles, quiet reflection, and ancient walls, right, buddy? Not unauthorized excavation and a New York City building code violation. But what if I told you one of the most famous synagogues in the world made global headlines in 2024, not for a holiday, not for a ceremony, but for a tunnel dug under it without permission? Let me explain. 770 Eastern Parkway, Crown Heights, Brooklyn. If you're Chabad Lubavitch, you already know this address. If you're not, this building is basically the Vatican of the movement. January 8th, 2024. City officials and NYPD show up, not for a ceremony, not for a guided tour. They're there to seal an unauthorized tunnel. Now here's where your brain goes full national treasure, buddy. Ancient passage, medieval monks, secret orders, Latin whispers in the dark. But this wasn't archaeology. It was recent digging. Wooden planks, rudimentary supports. The kind of construction that makes structural engineers physically uncomfortable. A roughly 60-foot tunnel running under an extension connected to 784 and 786 Eastern Parkway. Not the main building, but close enough that the NYC Department of Buildings showed up with structural concerns and violations. Inside the tunnel, a group of young yeshiva students. No cartel, no government conspiracy, no ancient secret society. Students with shovels, a group of students. The tunnel wasn't built to escape. It wasn't built to smuggle anything. It was built because the space around 770 is deeply symbolic, and some people wanted more of it. When a place is that important to a community, square footage stops being square footage. It becomes identity, tradition, territory. But Brooklyn doesn't care about symbolism. Brooklyn has inspectors. Now here's where it gets chaotic. When workers showed up to seal the tunnel with concrete, the group of students tried to stop them. They tore out fresh concrete, threw out boards, physically blocked the workers. The confrontation spilled into the basement, then outside. NYPD made 9 arrests that day over a tunnel nobody was supposed to know existed. 4 of those arrested ended up facing charges that went to trial. What actually happened was straightforward. Unauthorized digging, structural risk, code violations, enforcement. Not a secret order beneath Brooklyn. Just humans fighting over space in a building that matters, and a city that will absolutely show up with paperwork. And here's the part that nobody talks about enough. The tunnel had wooden plank supports described as inadequate, under a landmark building in dense Crown Heights. Buildings distribute weight into soil. Excavate that soil without engineering, and you shift the load in ways nobody planned for. That's why the DOB moved fast, not conspiracy, load-bearing math. So yeah, buddy, underground legends sound ancient and mysterious, but not 9 arrests, NYC building violations, and concrete poured on a Tuesday in January 2024. Mysterious. We all think bank robberies get caught because of alarms, cameras, and laser grids, right, buddy? The classic heist movie setup, security systems everywhere, a hacker and a vanguard's watching monitors, the whole Ocean's 11 vibe. Not a guy in his apartment accidentally tuning into the robbery on a radio. But what if I told you that's almost exactly what happened in one of the most famous bank heists in British history? Let me explain. London, September 11th, 1971. A quiet Saturday night on Baker Street, the same street famous for the fictional detective Sherlock Holmes. At 185 Baker Street, the Lloyd's Bank branch is closed, locked, alarmed, and completely secure, at least from the front door, because the robbery isn't happening through the entrance. 2 doors down, a gang had rented a leather goods shop called Le Sac, a perfectly normal storefront selling belts and handbags. But underneath that shop, over several weekends, they had been digging a tunnel through London clay, slowly moving about 40 feet toward the bank vault. And when they finally reached it, they didn't attack the vault door like in the movies. They came up through the floor. No alarm triggered, no camera pointed downward, and suddenly they were standing inside the vault room itself, surrounded by 268 safety deposit boxes, which they now had an entire weekend to open. Meanwhile, about half a mile away, a man named Robert Rowlands was sitting in his apartment doing what amateur ham radio operators often do on quiet nights, turning the dial and listening to whatever signals happened to be floating through the air. And that's when he heard something strange. 2 voices on walkie-talkies. Not taxi drivers, not delivery radios. 2 men talking about moving boxes, checking progress, coordinating a lookout on a roof nearby. It sounded less like normal radio chatter and more like someone directing a team inside a building. Rowlands realized he might be listening to a crime in progress, so he called the police. They assumed it was a prank. Because imagine getting that call on a Saturday night. "Hello, officer. I think I'm listening to a bank robbery on my radio." Instead, they told him to record it if he heard anything interesting. So he did. Meanwhile, the gang continued coordinating the heist using walkie-talkies over completely open radio frequencies, basically broadcasting their robbery to anyone with the right receiver. Eventually, Rowlands contacted Scotland Yard directly, and the police finally took it seriously. There was just one small problem. He had no idea which bank it was. So police began searching banks across London, checking branch after branch, trying to match the radio transmissions. By the end of the search, they had inspected around 750 banks in a 13-kilometer area, while the gang continued opening boxes inside the vault. By the time police found the right one, the crew had already finished. They packed the loot, climbed back down through the tunnel, walked out through the leather shop, and disappeared into London. When the bank opened Monday morning, the vault looked normal from the outside. Inside, hundreds of boxes had been emptied. The heist later became known as the walkie-talkie job, and 4 men were arrested for the robbery, including brothers Wolf and Anthony Gavin, and somehow the only person who realized it was happening while it was happening was a guy sitting in his apartment wearing pajamas and listening to the radio. So, yeah, buddy. Banks have alarms, cameras, reinforced vaults, and security systems designed to stop criminals coming through the door. But none of that helps much. When the robbers arrive from underground and the only witness is a bored radio hobbyist spinning a dial on a Saturday night. You know that warehouse rule, right, buddy? If it looks empty from the outside, it's probably just empty. Dusty pallets. A forklift that hasn't moved since 2009. One sad office chair contemplating existence. Nothing cinematic, nothing illegal, just abandoned industrial energy. But what if the truth is glowing purple behind a steel shutter? Let me explain. October 4th, 2025. Liverpool, UK, a street called Kitchen Street. Industrial zone, warehouses, storage units, metal shutters, gray brick everywhere. The kind of place where even Google Maps looks bored. Constable Tom Stretton and his team were on routine patrol. No drone footage. No anonymous tip. No high-tech surveillance. Just a guy acting weird near a warehouse. They stopped him. No drugs on him. But something else. A smell, not subtle. Not maybe that's something energy. A very strong smell of cannabis hanging in the air around a warehouse unit on Kitchen Street. One officer, one nose, one door. They opened it. Violet daylight. Rows of cannabis plants stretching back into the warehouse. Blinding purple grow lights hanging from the ceiling. Industrial fans humming. Ventilation rigs running along the walls. Improvised wiring feeding power into the lighting system. 5 growing rooms, more than 650 plants. Buddy, that's not a warehouse anymore. That's a botanical nightclub. From the outside, just another storage unit. Inside, a full-scale indoor farm running around the clock. Now here's the logic that makes warehouses perfect for this, buddy. The UK climate isn't growing season year-round. So if you want scale, you recreate the sun indoors. Grow lights, climate control, air circulation. Basically, a greenhouse with a criminal record. And industrial areas already have background noise. Trucks, machinery, electrical hum. Vehicles coming and going at odd hours. Nobody asks questions on Kitchen Street. Nobody looks twice at a closed shutter. The camouflage wasn't sophisticated. It was just a warehouse being a warehouse. But inside that building, police arrested 21 men the same day. 21, buddy. That's not two guys with a side hustle. That's shifts, roles, coordination. An operation big enough to run 650 plants across 5 rooms under artificial sunlight. The case moved through court. December 17th, 2025. 15 men sentenced, combined total more than 32 years in prison. 32 years. For a farm that started collapsing because someone smelled like weed on the street. The whole massive grow-up fell apart because one guy smelled too much like weed outside. Not surveillance, not a hacker tip, not a secret informant, a smell. So yeah, buddy, secret apartments inside malls, hidden tunnels under restaurants, warehouses glowing purple at night, places that looked completely normal until someone opened the wrong door. Because the weirdest illegal places aren't found by detectives. They're found by accident, just like you discovered your favorite buddy by accident. And you can accidentally subscribe to Cozy Fact Buddy